Welcome to Habeas Treasures, where I try to decipher this book, There's Treasure Inside by Jon Collins-Black, in order to find one of the 5 hidden treasures. On today's episode, I'm going to continue my breakdown of the Pokemon box and discuss possible reasons for the hidden Mewtwo in the purple image at the end of the chapter. Let's begin! Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the purple image at the end of the Pokemon box chapter. JCB said in an interview that it's an actual photo he took when he was hiding the treasure, but it's been clearly manipulated. The 2 alterations that I think most people agree on are the purple tint that's been added to the entire image and this small hidden character that appears to be a MewTwo Pokemon. I think both of these are likely clues. But what could they mean? Well, let's start with the Mewtwo. I believe that whenever JCB leaves us a clue in one of the images in the book, he also includes a text clue telling us where to look. In this case, I think one of the reasons JCB writes that he, quote, doesn't even remember taking this photo is because the Mewtwo is known for erasing humans' memories. I think he uses this line to tell us to look closely at the picture to find the reason for his memory loss, aka the Mewtwo. Now, it's also possible that the line about memory loss has a second meaning. Maybe the reason he, quote, doesn't remember taking the photo is because it's actually a photo of a photo, meaning someone else actually created the original image and then JCB just took a picture of it. So why would he do this? Well, let's just say hypothetically an artist created a painting or took a photograph of a place and called it something like Inspiration Point. JCB could zoom in on a portion of that image, tint it purple, and add the tiny Mewtwo. In this scenario, JCB could be using the name of the original image, in this case Inspiration Point, and the added pointing Mewtwo to tell us where to look to find the treasure. So maybe we are looking for a famous painting or photograph with point in the name instead of actually trying to find this exact purple image somewhere in nature. I think if JCB has gone down this path, then he has also likely included clues in the text of where to find this original work of art. Maybe in the final passage of the story where he writes, oddly, only one picture was preserved well enough to make any sense out of it. I don't even remember taking this photo, although I do reckon it was closer to the end of our day. This snapshot is now the only evidence that any of this adventure ever happened at all. I felt the least I could do was share it with you in this book. Now, if the purple image is a reproduction from somewhere else, then I think the last line, I felt the least I could do was share it with you in this book, might be indicating that we will find it in a famous book. Maybe a book that talks about a final reckoning or end of days, as the other lines in the passage might be suggesting. To me, this connection suggests the book of Revelation from the Bible that discusses the apocalypse. After all, we know that JCB grew up in a religious household, so a religious ending to a story about his childhood could make sense. However, the big problem I have with this solve is that the Bible isn't really known for having pictures, and it still doesn't explain the reason for the image of the Mewtwo that's pointing. So, if he wanted to guide us to an aha moment like the book of Revelation, he could have done it without the purple image and the hidden Mewtwo. So this leads me back to the question, why does JCB include a Mewtwo? What other reasons could there be for including this specific Pokemon? Well, early on in my research, I discovered that a Mewtwo is only found in Pokemon games in a cerulean or blue cave. I thought this could be a clue telling us that the final treasure hiding spot is somehow connected to a similar blue cave location. And when I was trying to determine which hotel JCB and his family stayed at in New Orleans on his original road trip, I discovered that the Roosevelt Hotel fit a lot of the clues in the story. In addition to originally being the site of a 6-story hotel called the Hotel Grunwald, the Roosevelt Hotel had an old nightclub called the Cave that was eventually replaced by a new nightclub called the Blue Room. So if you put these 2 nightclub names together, you get a blue cave, just like the one where a Mewtwo is found. The other thing I liked about the connection to the Roosevelt Hotel is that right before JCB hides the treasure with the Froakie and the Greninja, he writes, as I followed, each step began to remind me of being 5 years old again. The forest opened up, an eagle greeted us from high above. In this passage, JCB is reminiscing about his childhood trip, and the Roosevelt Hotel used to be called the Grunwald, which means green forest in German. So I don't think it's too big of a leap to think that the forest opening up like it did when he was 5 could be a reference to entering the hotel that used to be called the Green Forest. And then, in another interesting coincidence, the Roosevelt Hotel has a giant eagle over the registration desk, which makes sense with the line, "An eagle greeted us from high above." I think this is exactly the type of boots-on-the-ground clue that would be a great confirmer for a hunter getting close to finally figuring out the final hiding spot. Now, the obvious problem with this solve is that JCB has strongly suggested in interviews that the boxes aren't hidden in urban areas. I've personally stayed at the Roosevelt Hotel and spent a good portion of time exploring this area of New Orleans. And I came away thinking it would be very difficult to conceal a box outside near the hotel where it wouldn't have accidentally be found. Now, I still think, however, there's a lot to like about the Roosevelt Grunwald Hotel connection to the hunt. After all, there's likely a reason that JCB starts off the story in a New Orleans hotel, and the blue cave, the forest opening up, and the eagle greeting them from high above all seem to point to a Roosevelt Hotel clue connection. But as much as I like the idea of finding the Roosevelt Hotel connection, still doesn't explain the purple image entirely. After all, JCB said he actually took the picture, and unfortunately, I didn't see anything in or around the hotel that reminded me of the purple image. Okay, so what other reasons could JCB have had for including the Mewtwo at the end of the story? Well, Mew is also the name of a Greek letter and is used as a variable in many mathematical and scientific formulas. One scientific use of Mew is it's the symbol for the coefficient of friction, and it's also used as the prefix for micro. Now, out of these two, it makes more sense to me that JCB might be using the micro definition. After all, it would be pretty easy and clever to zoom in really close to something when taking a picture to disguise it as something else. Maybe what looks to be a river flowing in front of a bluff is actually a close-up picture of something different. I like this, but it doesn't explain why JCB would use a Mewtwo instead of just a Mew if the clue was micro. After all, he makes a reference to the Mew earlier in the chapter when he writes, "The original Pokemon Game Boy game had 150 different insect-inspired creatures, in addition to one extra Pokemon who was mysterious and very hard to find. This 151st Pokemon is Mew. It seems like this line is the perfect text clue to accompany finding a Mew in the purple photo. However, JCB inserted a Mewtwo, not a Mew. Strange. This leads me to think that the 2 part of Mewtwo is important. Maybe this is an indication that we should look at Mew as a number and apply a 2x multiple to it. In the Greek number system, Mew is the number 40. If we Mewtwo this, we get 80. Now, admittedly, this does nothing for me. I haven't been able to come up with a single clue based on the number 80. However, if we look at Mew as the 12th letter in the Greek alphabet, things get more interesting. The Greek alphabet has 24 letters, so Mew times 2 would be the final Greek letter in the alphabet, known as omega. The reason I like this connection is because what better way to indicate the end of a treasure hunt than with the final letter of the Greek alphabet that has been used for centuries to describe the end. In fact, going back to the book of Revelation in the Bible for a minute, Jesus is quoted as saying, "I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end." So, it's possible that Mewtwo could symbolize Omega through basic math and the end of the hunt. It might also connect to the book of Revelation through Jesus' famous quote, which I still like because what better way to uncover an aha moment than in a revelation. That's one of those treasure hunt puns that seems on brand for JCB to make, especially in light of his religious upbringing. This led me to look at other lines in the chapter that also have something to do with the end of the hunt, like this one. The Greninja also introduced me to a wise golem who happened to have a great idea about where we could hide our treasure. We circled back, we left the box not far from a place where locals turn up from time to time. Okay, so what could the great idea be that the wise golem had? Well, great in Greek is mega, So let's start there. Then let's circle back to the front of the word and place a circle or an O. We get, you guessed it, Omega. And watch connoisseurs know that Omega is also the name of a famous high-end Swiss watchmaker. Omega is the official timepiece of both the Olympics since 1932 and James Bond, both of which are mentioned in the treasure book. This could connect with the line where locals turn up from time to time. So who knows if this is correct? Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of places in the US named Omega. However, there is an interesting concept that pops up in philosophy and science fiction frequently called the Omega point. This is an angle that might be worth investigating since the Mewtwo is pointing, after all, in the purple picture. The Omega point is a theory where everything in the universe evolves to a final state of singularity. This theory of evolution, very Pokemon-like. But as much as I like the Omega connection, I also can't rule out that maybe the Mewtwo is simply wordplay directing us to the famous Route 66 landmark, the Blue Whale of Catoosa. After all, Mewtwo could be a proxy for Cat2. And the blue whale looks a lot like a blue cave, which is the only place you can find a Mewtwo. And as I mentioned in an earlier video, the Blue Whale of Catoosa was one of the only places in the country that people could purchase the original Snapchat Spectacle digital glasses that allowed you to take pictures like the snapshot mentioned in the Pokemon Box chapter. Anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it and that it helps you with your hunts.